It is time for Building Rural Wealth, and we have with us Dan Miller. Dan, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Eric.
Rachel Dorr as well. Rachel, how are you?
I'm good, Aaron.
Pull that
How are
mic
you?
up there a little closer to you,
Sure.
Rachel. Yeah. So, required minimum distributions, RMDs, and managing the tax bite. Okay. Set this up for me. Dan,
Well,
Rachel,
you
tell
know,
me about
it's we love to talk taxes. You know, we love to talk required minimum distributions. That's part of the reason why Rachel's here, of course, is that she's our tax guru. And, you know, I always say, you know, required minimum distributions, you got to remember that's the IRS way of saying we're patiently waiting. You know, Uncle Sam's patiently waiting out there. You know, we've been waiting all these years, and it's our time to collect some taxes. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover what RMDs are, when they start, how they're taxed, and maybe some strategies to kind of reduce that tax bite. And again, the goal's not here to not to scare you at all, but just to kind of prepare people, because it is a big part of their financial planning.
You bet. What's an RMD? Break it down for me just in plain, simple terms, Dan.
Well, RMD, of course, stands for Required Minimum Distributions. And again, just like I said, what an RMD is, you know, the government, whenever you have any type of a tax-deferred account, retirement account, you know, folks are familiar with 401ks, IRAs, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs, you know, all those things that grow tax-deferred. Well, again, Uncle Sam patiently waiting out there, and allows you to grow that money tax-deferred until retirement. But then at some point, you know, they're going to start collecting some taxes. So required minimum distributions rules are the rules that say how much and how soon that you've got to start taking your required minimum distributions. So what the rules have changed significantly over the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
You know, everybody used to be familiar with 70 and a half, and I know everybody thought that was weird. Why 70 and a half, you know? But then the rule went to 72. Well, now it's age 73 is the starting point for most retirees today. Unless you've already started them, then, you know, again, those rules apply.
Sure.
And for those born 1960 or later, it's now 75. So, I mean, for example, I'm born in 1963, so, you know, my RMD is not till age 75, which is kind of hard to believe, you know, that it's that far out there. And again, they're, you know, and how they're calculated, we have people ask us about this all the time. And basically, it's a actuarial table that the government uses, that the IRS uses based on life expectancy. And what it always looks at, every year, it looks at the 12/31 balance of the year prior. So if you have an IRA, for example, that had a balance of $500,000 on 12/31 of the year prior, okay?
Yeah.
And it's your first year at age 73 taking a required minimum distribution, that would be somewhere around to be pretty close to like $18,000. And again, it's a percentage that changes a little bit based on your age every year.
Okay.
So, you know, like I said, one of the big things about RMDs that we always like to stress is, you know, you can't, if you have tax qualified plans, you know, that are growing tax deferred, you can't avoid paying or taking your RMDs, but you can absolutely prepare for them and manage them. And that's a lot of what we talk about when we talk about financial planning when it comes around RMDs.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about the tax bite. Rachel, tell me about what are we looking at? RMDs and taxes. Break that down for me.
Yes. So those RMDs are considered ordinary income when it comes to taxes, just like your wages and other forms of income. So if you're not considering that as part of your taxable income, that can push you into a higher tax bracket than expected. So that does go towards that ordinary income. And that has, adding to that ordinary income is going to impact how your Social Security is taxed. More of those Social Security benefits may become taxable. And those Medicare premiums, those income thresholds, if you exceed those, that's going to affect the cost of your Medicare premiums too.
Okay.
Yep. So we see folks, they don't need that extra income. You know, they're kind of in a predictable income scenario when it comes to taxes, but you still have to take it, you know, and then suddenly
because it's required.
Yes, it is
So,
required.
Uncle
It is
Sam's
required.
waiting,
That's right.
patiently
You're like,
waiting.
everything's
Yes.
fine, everything's good, where your income is and your taxes and your Medicare, and then all of a sudden you may be, kind of pushed out of that comfort zone you've been in for some years.
Are there strategies to help manage that, Rachel?
Yes, absolutely. So obviously starting early is a good strategy.
Sure.
We know this is coming, and like Dan mentioned, there are, changes frequently with this. So I think the more you can kind of be proactive and less reactive when the time comes, you're going to be in a lot better position to be strategic with it.
Okay.
So sometimes we know this is coming, so you may want to take some distributions before that RMD age. You might be, if you're in your 60s, retired, but haven't started drawing that Social Security or pensions, that might be a good place to add some of those distributions into your taxable income when it might be a little bit lower during that time.
Okay.
And you have a little bit lower income tax bracket. So what you really want to look at over those years is kind of where you're at with your tax bracket and kind of filling that bucket, if you will. So you're not forced into the next tax bracket. If you can fill it over the years, then you may not be, pushed over the edge when those RMDs kick in.
Okay.
So it's kind of spreading the pain out. Like Dan said, there's no way of getting out of paying the taxes, but if you can kind of spread that out a little bit, it's a little bit easier to
Again, you
handle.
can manage that a little bit.
You can manage it a little bit.
All right. And you help people do this too, by the way.
Absolutely, yes.
Talk to me, Dan, a little bit about Roth conversions. You've touched on this in the past a time or two, but how can that help you out with this situation?
Well, going right along with what Rachel just said, I mean, sometimes it makes sense. And, and I know this goes against folks, traditional thinking, and especially, not to pick on a tax preparer, but oftentimes a lot of the a tax professional, their number one goal is to keep taxes low, and I get that. But sometimes it's managing them over time, and sometimes that managing that pain, like Rachel referred to it, is by spreading it out. And one way you can spread it out is by taking some of that tax pain early. So one way is, like Rachel said, maybe you go ahead and take a little bit of income. But then another way you can do it, and especially oftentimes, like if somebody is younger and they are not necessarily younger, but they've retired now. Okay, so their W-2 type or 1099 income is lower, so their that type of income, taxable income, is lower. So now might be a time where a Roth conversion does make sense, because a Roth conversion is taxed just like ordinary income, again, because it's you are now converting that to grow tax free. But when you do that, you do have to pay tax on it in that year. But again, doing that systematically, strategically, based on your retirement plan and the rest of your financial plan, it might make sense to do that. And this is something that we do with people all the time, is you have to be strategic about it. I mean, it's easy, it's easy for people to look at their plan and go, well, I got $3 million. I know I'm going to have enough. I'm going to be fine. So it really doesn't matter. I don't need to talk to anybody. Well, yes, you probably will be, but is there a reason to pay any more to Uncle Sam than what you have to?
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I say the answer is no.
Right.
Let's be strategic about this. Let's look at
It's your money. You earned it.
Absolutely, it's your money. Let's
Yeah.
I had a guy tell me one time think of the IRS and Uncle Sam as your partner. Well, you want him to be as much of a minority partner as possible, when it comes time to spending the money from your joint venture here, which is your retirement accounts.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's great. And you can help people determine when it is most advantageous to potentially look at a Roth conversion.
Absolutely.
Rather than just kind of winging it.
Yeah, and like I said, oftentimes that's part of the financial and the retirement income plan.
What's a qualified charitable deduction, Rachel?
Okay, so qualified charitable distributions, or we call them QCDs, that is a way of taking some of those RMDs and not having to pay taxes on them by way of donations.
Okay.
Yep. So charitable donations, it has to be qualified, but you can start actually doing QCDs at 70 and a half.
Okay.
And basically that money goes directly from your retirement account to a qualified charity.
Okay.
And
So you never really gain possession of it,
Nope,
right? It just
nope.
goes from your account to the charity.
Yep, and it
Okay.
is not taxed when you do that.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you're already making these deductions, I mean, or contributions, you know, these, if you're already charitably inclined, I mean, this is a absolutely great tool
You bet.
to manage that. I mean, because like I said, instead of writing those, you know, instead of taking the money from your RMD, you know, you take it and then turn around and write the check to the church or the organization or whatever. Instead, you just have the check go directly, and it's
You say qualified charity. Are there a list of those, or what's a qualified charity?
Yes, and it has to be qualified in the eyes of the IRS.
Right.
So it could be, you know, a nonprofit or a charity, but if it doesn't have that designation with the IRS, it doesn't qualify.
Okay.
But I think you'd be surprised that the most organizations are
Qualified.
eligible
Okay.
for
Yeah.
that tax deduction on your income with those QCDs. And I think some people don't even realize how much giving they do. Mm-hmm. If you look at it, and like Dan was saying, you know, if you might be writing these checks, you might as well just go ahead and have that sent directly from your IRA to the organization and save some taxes.
Sure.
There.